Imagine this. You walk into a room filled with people. Some are friends, some are strangers, some are quietly watching from the shadows. You don't notice it at first, but every single one of them is listening, waiting, measuring you. Then, without thinking, you open your mouth. One careless phrase, one reckless confession, one boast you didn't need to share, and in that instant you hand them the keys to your power. Your reputation, your authority, maybe even your future, begins to collapse. Not because of what they did to you, but because of what you said to them. This is the cruel truth that Niccolò Machiavelli understood centuries ago. A man's own mouth is his greatest traitor, more dangerous than spies, more destructive than enemies, more lasting than any weapon. A single word, once spoken, cannot be pulled back, and the more you talk, the more you lose. This is the psychology of power that most people ignore. In fact, it's why so many fail. They talk too much. They reveal too much. They let their emotions pour out through their mouths, and in doing so, they hand their weaknesses to the very people who are waiting to use them. But you, if you are listening carefully, you have the chance to master what others cannot. And it begins here. Stop for a second and ask yourself, how many times have you regretted something you said? Think of the burn in your stomach when you realized you revealed too much. Think of the anger in your chest when you saw your own words turned against you. Words are like arrows. Once they leave your lips, they fly into the air and they do not come back. They hit targets you never intended. They wound you in ways you didn't expect. Machiavelli knew this better than anyone. He lived in a world of betrayal, politics, treachery, and shifting alliances. In that world, silence was not just wisdom, it was survival. A man who spoke too freely signed his own death sentence. That lesson is no less true today. If anything, it is more urgent. Because now every word you speak can be recorded, replayed, shared, twisted, and used against you forever. Your mouth is more dangerous now than it has ever been in human history. Think about it like this. Every word you say is currency. Spend it carelessly, and your value shrinks. Hold it back, save it, invest it carefully, and suddenly your words carry weight. This is why powerful men and women often say very little. They let others talk. They let others reveal themselves. Then, when they finally speak, their words cut like a blade. Silence builds power. Silence builds mystery. Silence builds respect. Talking endless lest they admire you. The more you reveal, the easier it becomes for them to read you, predict you, and ultimately control you. Machiavelli would whisper to you, learn silence, because silence cannot be used against you, but your words, they will always betray you. Let's look at one of the most common betrayals of the mouth, speaking in anger. How many times have you let rage take over? You feel heat in your chest, your voice rises, and before your brain can stop you, the words are already out. In those moments, you are not in control. Your anger is, and your mouth becomes the traitor. It reveals your deepest frustrations, your fears, your insecurities. People may act like they forget, but they don't. They store those words, and later they use them to corner you. You don't need enemies to spy on you when your own mouth exposes everything. Machiavelli warned that a ruler, or any person seeking strength, must be cautious in speech. Once your feelings are known, you become predictable, and predictability is weakness. Imagine a chess game where your opponent announces every move before making it. That player will always lose. Yet most people live their lives like this, announcing their emotions, their frustrations, their secrets for the world to hear. Then they wonder why they are always one step behind. But anger is not the only danger. Overconfidence is just as deadly. You've seen it. Someone finally finds success, and instead of guarding their victory, they boast. They talk about their strategy. They brag about their achievements. They reveal details that should stay hidden. At first, it seems harmless. But the more they talk, the more mystery they lose. Their enemies study every word. Their friends start to envy them. Their admirers quietly resent them, and little by little, their own words dig their grave. Machiavelli understood this cruel truth. Boasting invites enemies. Revealing too much destroys respect. The man who constantly speaks of his victories makes himself a target. The woman who constantly shares her secrets becomes a victim of her own openness. Words don't just betray you, they attract the very danger you should avoid. Now think of nervous chatter. How often do people talk just to fill silence? You've seen it before. A man feels uncomfortable, so he babbles. A woman wants approval, so she over-explains. In those moments, their own mouths strip them naked. They reveal their insecurities. They expose their weaknesses. They show exactly where they can be broken. Silence makes people uncomfortable. That's why it's so powerful. Those who cannot endure it expose themselves. Those who can endure it control the battlefield. Machiavelli would remind you, composure is power. Even if your heart is racing, even if fear grips your stomach, your words must remain measured, deliberate, and controlled. Lose your mouth, and you lose your power. Here's the cruel twist. Sometimes it's not even reckless emotions that betray you. It's your desperate attempt to say the right thing. People over-explain, they justify, they defend themselves with endless words. And the more they explain, the more suspicious they look. The more they talk, the less people trust them. Silence, again, is the antidote. Silence leaves others guessing. Silence makes them unsure. Uncertainty creates power. If they don't know what you think, they can't predict you. If they can't predict you, they can't control you. But when you talk endlessly, you give them a map of your mind. They can walk right into your weaknesses because you have already handed them the key. This is the first law of the mouth. Your words betray you more than your enemies ever could. Every confession, every insult, every boast, every nervous laugh, it is all ammunition. And here's the part most people don't realize. Words don't just betray you to others. They betray you to yourself. Think about the times you've said, "I can't do this," or "I'm not good enough," or "I'll probably fail." Those words, repeated often, become beliefs. They shape your mind. They shape your reality. Your tongue becomes your prison. Machiavelli knew that power begins in the mind, and a tongue that speaks weakness convinces the mind that weakness is truth. The battle is not only external, it is internal. Every careless word is another chain wrapped around your own future. So I ask you, how many times has your mouth betrayed you? How many friendships destroyed by words you couldn't take back? How many opportunities lost because you revealed too much too soon? How many moments of anger or pride or nervous chatter have haunted you afterward, when the damage was already done? This is not a rare mistake. It is a universal one. Everyone falls into this trap. Everyone becomes a victim of their own mouth. But the few who master it, the rare ones who control their tongue, those are the ones who rise above. Because silence is not emptiness. Silence is strength. Silence is mystery. Silence is power. Picture this. You are sitting at a table across from your rivals. Maybe they smile. Maybe they pretend to be your allies. Maybe they keep quiet. But do not be fooled. They are studying you, waiting for you to make the first mistake. They don't need to trick you because they know most people will betray themselves. And how? Through their mouth. Watch closely in any negotiation, any argument, any gathering of power. Those who speak the most almost always lose. They lose control. They lose leverage. They lose respect. Silence, on the other hand, is a fortress. It cannot be attacked. It cannot be twisted. It cannot be used against you. This is why Machiavelli insisted that rulers, generals, and leaders must learn to hold their tongue. A single sentence can undo months of planning. A single phrase can ruin an entire reputation. Yet silence, calm, deliberate silence, creates fear, mystery, and authority. Think of the power of mystery. Human beings cannot resist filling gaps. When you don't speak, people invent their own explanations. They wonder what you are thinking. They wonder what you are planning. They project strength onto you because they cannot read you. Your silence makes them nervous. It makes them cautious. They tread carefully because they do not know where you stand. This uncertainty gives you an advantage without lifting a finger. Meanwhile, those who chatter endlessly remove all mystery. They show every card in their hand. They let others read their fears, their desires, their ambitions. And once they are read, they are predictable. Once predictable, they are vulnerable. Machiavelli would tell you this: a man who is known completely can be destroyed completely. A man who remains unreadable is untouchable. This is why the art of silence is more powerful than the sharpest sword. Now let's step into the battlefield of modern life. Think about your workplace, your relationships, your friendships. How often do people destroy themselves because they cannot remain silent? A worker tells his boss too much, hoping to impress him, but instead he reveals his weaknesses. A woman confesses her secrets to a friend, not realizing envy is listening in silence. A man shares his dreams loudly, not knowing that someone else in the room will steal them. Every careless word is a seed. Once planted, it grows in soil you cannot control. And when it grows, it often grows into poison. Silence is different. Silence plants nothing. Silence gives nothing away. Silence leaves no trail to follow. If you truly want to protect your vision, your plans, your future, keep them locked inside until the moment of action. Talking creates danger. Action creates results. There is another layer here. Silence does not only protect you, it weaponizes others. When you refuse to speak, people begin to speak for you. They reveal themselves, thinking they must fill the void. They expose their motives, their fears, their ambitions, just to break the discomfort of quiet. Watch a liar when confronted with silence. Watch how quickly their nerves unravel. They start talking, and the more they talk, the more their lies reveal themselves. This is the hidden beauty of silence. It is not passive, it is active. It is not weakness, it is strategy. Machiavelli would remind you, silence makes others do the work for you. When you don't speak, others speak too much. When you don't reveal, others overexpose. When you don't confess, others confess in your place. And while they bleed themselves dry with words, you remain untouched, untouchable, unbroken. But let us go even deeper. The true danger of speaking too much is not just that others gain power over you. It is that you surrender your inner authority. When you constantly explain yourself, you are telling the world, I need your approval. When you constantly defend yourself, you are saying, I am guilty until I prove otherwise. When you constantly talk about your plans, you are admitting, I don't trust myself enough to keep this secret. Every word is a confession of weakness. Silence, on the other hand, speaks a different language. It says, I don't need to explain. I don't need to defend. I don't need approval. I move when I choose, and until then, you will know nothing. That is the voice of power. That is the psychology of command. People do not follow those who explain themselves endlessly. They follow those who speak rarely, but with impact. They follow those whose silence makes every word carry weight. Consider the greatest leaders, emperors, generals, even modern-day figures of influence. The ones who dominate are not the ones who talk endlessly. They are the ones who master silence. Alexander the Great did not waste time justifying himself. He acted, and his silence kept his enemies guessing. Napoleon Bonaparte often sat in silence, letting others talk themselves into mistakes, while he collected every detail without revealing a single thought. Even in business and politics today, the most dangerous individuals are the ones who let others speak while they observe in silence. Silence gives them information. Silence gives them leverage. Silence gives them time to strike when the moment is perfect. Talking, on the other hand, takes away all three. Talking makes you weak, predictable, and exposed. Let's be brutally honest. Most people cannot stand silence because it forces them to face themselves. In silence, they hear their own thoughts. They feel their own insecurities. That discomfort drives them to fill the space with noise. They laugh nervously. They over-explain. They confess secrets that should never leave their lips. And in doing so, they hand away their power. But if you can master silence, if you can sit calmly in the storm, holding your tongue, controlling your breath, you will break people without lifting a weapon. You will unsettle them, You will make them doubt themselves. You will own the battlefield of psychology. This is why Machiavelli's wisdom is not just about politics, it is about life itself. To control silence is to control perception, and to control perception is to control reality. Now imagine yourself in a conflict. Someone accuses you. They want to provoke you. They want you to explode, to defend yourself, to lose control. The weak man will take the bait. He will talk too much. He will justify. He will try to explain his way out. And with every word he looks weaker, guiltier, more desperate. But the strong man, the Machiavellian man, he stays silent. He looks them in the eye, but his lips do not move. That silence is unbearable for the accuser. They begin to doubt. They begin to fear. They begin to question if they are the ones in danger. Silence in that moment becomes a weapon sharper than steel. It flips the entire balance of power without a single word spoken. Understand this. Silence is not the absence of communication. It is the highest form of communication. Every pause, every refusal to explain, every calm moment of restraint sends a message louder than speech. It says, I control myself. I control this room. I control the narrative. This is the ultimate strength. Anyone can talk. Few can remain silent. And in that difference lies the division between the weak and the powerful, between the follower and the leader, between the forgotten and the feared. The mistake most people make is confusing silence with weakness. Silence is not surrender, it is preparation, it is calculation, it is the patience of a hunter. A wolf does not bark at every shadow. It waits, observes, and when it strikes with precision. That is the psychology of power. Silence gives you surprise. Silence gives you control. People who talk endlessly betray themselves without knowing it. They think they're impressing, but they shrink. They think they're building trust, but they're only giving ammunition to others. They think they're winning attention, but they're losing respect. A man of silence is like a vault. People respect him because they cannot read him. They fear him because they cannot predict him. They follow him because every rare word feels carved in stone. Machiavelli knew the brutal truth. The less you speak, the more people imagine. And what they imagine will always be more powerful than what you could say. And yet today, we live in a culture of noise. Social media trains people to overshare. They broadcast every thought, every emotion, every secret, handing out free weapons to enemies, strangers, even employers. What looks like freedom of speech often becomes a trap of exposure. Silence is freedom. It is independence from the addiction of validation. It is saying, my life is mine, my thoughts are mine, my plans are mine. In a world that worships noise, silence becomes rebellion. Conflict reveals this power even more. When attacked, the world expects you to fight with words, to argue, to defend. That's the trap. Once you speak, you give your enemy material. Silence breaks the cycle. It starves them. They cannot twist words you never said. They cannot strike what does not answer. Silence turns their attack into frustration. It forces them to destroy themselves in the echo of their own noise. That is the Machiavellian art of war, not fighting harder, but making others fight themselves. But silence is not easy. It requires strength, patience, discipline. Most cannot endure it because they crave release, comfort, understanding. But power is not born in comfort. It is born in control. To master silence is to master yourself. It is to stop being a slave to impulse. It is to choose every word, every pause, every restraint with purpose. And in that control, people begin to see you differently. They respect you. They fear you. They imagine you know more than you do. That illusion itself is power. So here is the lesson. Never waste words. Speak rarely, but when you do, let it cut like steel, not scatter like dust. A careless word can ruin a life, but a single silence can change history. Machiavelli's wisdom is survival, strategy, victory. The world belongs to those who understand this. The more you talk, the more you lose. But the more you master silence, the more the world bends to your presence. Now the choice is yours. Do you control your words or do your words control you? Do you use silence as a weapon or do you let noise betray you? Are you one of the many who talk themselves into weakness or one of the few who rise above, commanding respect through silence? Think carefully, because in the end, the answer will decide whether you are remembered or forgotten.